I'm going to introduce our special guest, Rafael Ortiz. He's author of 3 books dedicated to Columbus, and I believe he's in the process of writing 2 more. So welcome, Rafael. I'm so glad you could join us this afternoon. And welcome to Virginia's Views and Vibes, K5.
Thank you for having me today.
So Dom and
I have the first question, Jenny, right?
Okay, yes, you do, but go ahead.
Rafael, you're a prolific writer. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
One is, why did you pick Christopher Columbus as being the subject, and where do you find the time?
And when do I what?
Where do you find the time to write these books?
Well, okay, 2016 or 15, I saw on social media people claiming that that we should not celebrate Columbus Day because Christopher Columbus was evil, and I never heard such a thing. So I decided to read the sources, and from the get-go, I could see that that was not true. Because I could not find a book that defend Columbus from modern day revisionists, I decided to write it myself. And as for the time, I just do it every time that I can. In the beginning, I have much of it already bookmarked. Because I could not find the book, I started writing the first book. And the second book was because there were some things that I didn't have time to put some things on the first one, so I put it on the second one. And then the third one, it was other things, that I believe that it would make a great book about Columbus. And I do every time that I can. Every time that I have a chance, I write or read or write.
In your first book, The Hero?
Yes, Christopher Columbus, The Hero.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so on that book is also available on Amazon and Kindle, and it's also available in Spanish because Spanish is my mother language.
Okay.
And from the 3 books that I wrote, that's the one that is the most important if you care about how to debunk the claims about Columbus against him. And that's why also I made it in Spanish. And each chapter debunks claims like he was a racist, that he was a genocidal maniac, that he was greedy, the claims to genocide and colonial abuse and all those things. Each chapter will debunk the claim. My second book is Columbus Day versus Indigenous Peoples Day.
Right.
That one I also speak about because in the beginning I knew that they were using Columbus as a scapegoat, and from there they will move to other people like Washington and Jefferson, and that's what they did. They started in 2017 by vandalizing statues of Columbus, and then later, a few weeks or months later, they start to do the same with the Confederate monuments.
Yeah.
And that was a clever tactic because they are linking Columbus to the Civil War when he had nothing to do with the Civil War. So I wrote that book, the second book, Columbus Day versus Indigenous Peoples Days, to talk about Washington and Jefferson and the Constitution and Independence Day, and also I talk about Columbus Day, and I said that there are also like 2 or 3 Indigenous Peoples Day on the map. Not on the map, and on the calendar.
Right.
So there is no need to rename anything. And also, I speak not in prejudice of the indigenous people because I myself, I am one. So in the sense that I'm Hispanic, and Hispanics, we are a mix of Europeans and indigenous people.
Are you ever met with hostility, towards your writing and towards defending Columbus? Have you ever been met with sort of, bad remarks or things like that?
Not in person. In the beginning, it was just people sending me mean messages DM on Facebook. But through the years, things have been getting better. At least here, I live in South Carolina, so I mean, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's okay. But to me personally, nobody have attacked me personally. But we have sometimes, because I help other people, I help other groups to defend Christopher Columbus, and sometimes we have victories when they try to rename a Columbus Day or remove a statue. But sometimes it's not so much. So that's it.
So where did you grow up here, or where did you grow up? Because you have a positive feeling about Columbus and Columbus Day. So you were taught in school that Columbus was a hero. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, but that was everybody back, long time ago. Everybody knew that he was a hero. I grew up. I was born and grew up in Puerto Rico. I've been here in the United States for 25 years, and as I say, that was strange to hear that Columbus was doing all these things, mistreating the natives, cutting their hands, raping them. Never heard anything like that. So when I went to the sources, as soon as you read the first page, you already know that what they're saying is not true.
right. So then, your second book, I guess, is all right. Was that the Christopher Columbus and the Christian Church? Because Christopher Columbus came here for many reasons, but one, in fact, was to expand Christianity, to introduce Christianity. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's my third book. It's called Christopher Columbus and the Christian Church, and Why He Matters to Believers Today. I wrote that one because when you read the story of Columbus, you can see that he was religious, and that was one of his main purposes, to bring the gospel to the natives. And as I usually say, if Columbus was the racist, then he was a bad one. He was very bad at it, because he came to bring the gospel to people different than himself, and he was always good to them. People usually think that it was the Pilgrims who brought Christianity, but it was really Columbus, and that was one of his purposes, to come here to the Indies. Even though, I mean, he was not in the Indies. That's why we say that he discovered America, because America is in between Asia and Europe, and he came for that purpose. And also, he believed that, because the Bible says that Jesus will come after the gospel is spread everywhere, and he believed that he was fulfilling prophecies, especially in the book of Isaiah, and he have a collection of letters that is known as the Book of Prophecies, and that's what he was doing. He was trying to do his part in spreading the gospel.
It's my understanding you actually were able, I'm not sure if it was on the first book or the second, that you were able to see some of his letters, some of his writing. Is that true?
Yeah, you can read them. I mean, because Spanish is my mother language, I can read, and you can find them for free on Google Books. And most of my books are from there, free, because they are in public domain. But they are in Spanish, and they are all Spanish, so it's kind of different a little bit. And it's like his Historia de las Indias by Bartolomé de las Casas. That's a long one. That's like 3 to 4 or 5 volumes, depending on the house, the publication. And some of those books, they have like 300 or 500 pages long, or 700. One of them have like 900 pages long, and it's all Spanish. That's where you get all these letters, and they're like transcripts that came from that book. And there are other people, I mentioned them on my book, my first book, the sources, like Peter Martyr. That one actually you can read in English. It's called the Orbe Novo. I guess that means the New World. And it's volume 1, and also there is a volume 2. It's long, but it's good. And he talks about, and also I like it because you read. Peter Martyr wrote it as things were happening, and the same with Christopher Columbus. He was writing his letters and his journals as things were happening. And that was also for the eyes of the queen only too.
Oh, really?
Yes, so it's not like he's trying to write something, his biography or anything. Many decades later, he wrote his father's biography, and the way that we know something is true is when there is consistency. So you can see that there is consistency with what Columbus wrote in private, which was top secret, and what his son, who was also with Columbus during his fourth voyage, was saying in public.
I suppose we can only speculate, but you in actual fact debunk what Howard Zinn has written. And we can only speculate as to why. Dr. Amara, any guesses or any opinion on what is the purpose of Howard Zinn fact-checking himself and actually writing slanderous lies about Columbus?
I think that from what I know about Howard Zinn, he was a Marxist, and the idea that Columbus was an icon here, and he was attacking. I think as Raphael mentioned, it was their attempt to destroy the icons in America, and he was the perfect choice because they thought that he was bringing back slaves. And I think that's something I want to follow up with Raphael, because that seems to be the hook that they're using in saying that Columbus was a slaver, that he enslaved people and brought Indians back. And you have the sources. Can you address that?
Yeah. Okay. So on that subject, the slavery slavery was universal. That means that everybody was practicing back then. The Europeans were enslaving other Europeans, and Africans were enslaving other Africans. Indigenous people were enslaving other indigenous people. Mostly it was due to war, conquest, and or deaths or crimes. And even in the Bible, slavery is even in the Bible. So when people became Christians, like pagan countries became Christians, they followed the example of the Bible, that they only practice the slavery, but only in that context of crimes or conquest and so on. But they would not enslave Christians. And what happened is that at the time of Christopher Columbus, Spain was fighting against the Moors, which is another way to say the Muslims. You remember that Christianity spread out quickly after Jesus and the apostles, but then centuries later, Muhammad came and he conquered back many of those Christian countries, and he pretty much left Europe as the only place that Christians were there. It was like the place where the Christians were fighting back. So Muslims were trying to conquer Christians and enslave them, and then thankfully Christopher Columbus discovered a new world where Jewish people who were being persecuted could come here for freedom, and later other people who were looking for freedom of religion were able to come here. But on the subject of slavery, something that people don't mention is that when Columbus came to the Caribbean, he met with the Taínos, and every time that he would go to an island, everybody would run away, and he did not know why. And it's because they thought they were the Caribs. And the Caribs were a tribe of cannibals who were invading the Caribbean all the time, and they would enslave the Taínos, they will rape, they will sometimes even kill everybody in one island. They would cut the private parts of people, men. If women were pregnant and they have a baby, they will kill the baby or eat the baby. So they were very evil. And so Columbus made a peace treaty with some of them, especially with this chief called Guacanagari in Hispaniola, that he would protect him from his enemies. So when Columbus came for his second voyage, that's what he was doing. He was either destroying the canoes or burning the canoes of the Caribs, or taking some of those cannibals as prisoners of war. And he sent them back to Spain. He also helped Waka Nagari fight other enemies, and that's what people used to do back then. A nation will ally with another nation to fight a common enemy. And that's the only slavery, in quotes, that Columbus was allowed to practice in the context of war. And also it was temporal. It was not forever. And we know that because Columbus asked in one of the letters to the Queen for 2 more years, which she was not in agreement, and she stopped. During the Columbus's third voyage, it was suspended. But people don't know that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, sorry. He
Go
actually
ahead.
tried to defend the Caribs from being enslaved after a while. Is that what you said?
Excuse me?
You said that he defended after he brought back slaves. He brought back slaves that were the result of war. Was that correct?
He helped his friend, the Taínos of Hispaniola, or at least that chief, Waka Nagari, and the people that he fought, that he took some of them, including cannibals, and he sent them to Spain. But there was a disagreement between him and the Queen decided to set them free.
Really? Wow.
Yes. During the third voyage.
Raphael, I just want to ask you, I know you have a Facebook page, and what is the name of the Facebook page?
It's official Christopher Columbus, like the official page of.
Okay.
And also I have one on YouTube too.
That's on Facebook?
Facebook and YouTube.
And YouTube, okay. Because that's good to know too. And I want to back up on something you said, because I think what a lot of people do not know when they're defending, when they're arguing about Christopher Columbus, is exactly what you said. Back in their culture, they are guilty of taking slaves, killing them, scalping them, murdering them, raping women. They had human sacrifice and killed babies. They would torture babies. I mean, I think it was sort of what was happening here. And then Christopher Columbus came, and the exact thing that they were guilty of, they try and accuse Christopher Columbus. And I think one of the things that we always go back to is they accuse Christopher Columbus of genocide, which you spoke about that. I would like you to address the genocide piece of this.
The genocide claim is something that is not even make sense.
Right.
Because Columbus was just one guy, and it's impossible for him to kill millions of people. One guy cannot do that. And also, they say that Christopher Columbus discovered an insignificant island in the Caribbean. So my question is, okay, so then how he committed the genocide of millions of people? So it doesn't make any sense. The people who made those claims, they don't even know the story of Christopher Columbus.
Right.
And the genocide was the thousands of people sacrificing human sacrifices in the, like the Aztecs and the Incas and other indigenous people. That's the genocide. But people, they pick and choose. What they call genocide is incorrectly is when some of the indigenous people later, after Columbus was dead, die of some sickness and diseases that they caught from the Europeans. That's what they call genocide, but that's not genocide. That's even the first Spaniards that came with Columbus, they died. Many of them died, and people don't mention that fact. And many Europeans later, they also die. They want you to know only about when the natives die, but they don't tell you anything about the Europeans.
Right. I think you compared it to the pandemic that we had, sort of like saying you're exposed to a germ, you become sick from it, but you can't call that genocide. What we don't call the pandemic genocide, nor should they refer to Columbus spreading germs in, the indigenous people sending their germs back over to Spain, they refer to that as genocide. And again, it's to me, it's just a way to just discredit Columbus and slander his name without being realistic. I think I heard you say that the first explorer that came to Florida was Ponce de Leon, and Florida was named. Wasn't Florida named from Easter? What does that translate to? Dom, do you know East? East of you know
Pascua, Florida.
Pascua, Florida.
Yeah, Pascua, Florida. Yes,
Okay.
meaning sourly Easter.
Okay. Pascua, Florida. I ruined the Italian language, Ortiz. Give me Spanish and I'm going to ruin that. So that's where.
Raphael, I got a question.
Yeah.
Your books sound like they're very powerful, but they're directed at a particular audience. My thinking is that, and this is coming from my background in education, that perhaps it might, if you have the time and energy, because it takes a lot of time and energy to write a book, I know, but to take your ideas and your information and write books for children. Everything down from comic books to film and what, because that's where the next generation is going to learn about Columbus. You ever thought of that?
Yes, one of my next books is for children.
Oh, great.
It's called Christopher Columbus, the Hero for Children.
Wow.
No,
I
that's
think
great.
it's ages 6 to 9 or something like that.
Excellent.
Have you ever thought of taking, I haven't seen the book yet, but since everything now is video, kids don't read that much unless parents read to them, etc. But making it into a short video for kids, because that's where the information is today. That's the information age. That's the medium.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I have a page on YouTube, and I have a few videos, like short videos and stuff, for everybody, for young people or kids or adults.
How do we get onto your YouTube page? What is that under? Just your name or?
Yeah, it's the same one, Official Christopher Columbus, and you will find it.
Okay, so Official Christopher Columbus gets you on the YouTube if you're on YouTube, and on the Facebook page, which is very important because you update that almost daily, your Facebook page, and that is very informative, very strong, very powerful. We're almost running out of time, but I want to just kind of go through a few things.
I've got one more question. You mentioned the fact that Jewish people found that the Christopher Columbus's journey was an opportunity for them to come to America. Could you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, Christopher Columbus. Some people he was a friend to them, and some people they have these conspiracies that he was also a Jewish, but that's not true. He was Italian, and I read a book, and I mentioned it in one of my books. I don't remember the title right now, but it was written by some Jewish person. He talks about the contributions of the Jewish people on the discovery of Christopher Columbus, meaning people who were with him on during the journeys, or people who helped with the money, and so on. So he was liked by that, by the Jewish people, and because he opened, and that's what he said. The writer, he said that Columbus opened that door open for them to come here for opportunities.
Was there any significant? I mean, because when something starts, it's very, very small. But was there any significant number of immigrants from from Europe that you know of? Because that was a time when the Jewish people were persecuted, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Well, Christopher Columbus, he opened the doors to everybody to come here. First the Spaniards, then the Portuguese, and then the British, the French, and everybody else, including Jewish people. Italians, of course.
I think I read that one of the reasons they think he was Jewish from the way that he wrote his diaries, again, that's just their opinion. And the day that he left for this voyage was the last day that the Jews were expelled from Spain. And I think people are just sort of putting that together and purely speculative on that. But we are down to 1 minute, and I want to thank you so much, Raphael, for doing this with us. I think you've shared a lot of information. And again, we thank you for your passion. You have written 3 books, The Hero, Christopher Columbus Defending Christianity, and then I believe there's one more, and I don't have it in front of me, Indigenous People. And again, something that you said, Indigenous people have, I think, 3 days. They have Indigenous People Month, which is in November, Indigenous People Day, which is November 26th. And then I think there's a day in August that's Worldwide Indigenous People Day. We have no fault with Indigenous people having their day, their month, their year. What we have fault with is the lies against Christopher Columbus and the fact that they want to take a day for another culture, and because of lies and misinformation, they want to take that day away. And again, little homework on why we have Columbus Day was partly because 11 Sicilian Italians were murdered. They were innocent of a crime, and following the crime,
They were lynched. They were
Orleans
lynched.
lynched them. So I think people do not always know their history, and when they make a judgment call like this, they need to get facts, and your books provide those facts. So thank you so much, and I look forward to your books, your 2 new books. Count me on that list to buy that children's book. Very interested in that, and thank you so much for your time. You know where to find us, and again, official, okay, I'm gonna mess this up, Raphael, the official Christopher Columbus page on Facebook and on YouTube. So thanks again, join us next time, and have a great week.
Very good. Thank you very much, Raphael, for your work. It's a labor of love. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
We appreciate your dedication and commitment. Thank you.